tell us, please, how old were you when you started working with a knife?
With the knife, okay, I started martial arts at 10. I started working with bladed martial arts about 17 years old.
What actually punched you that you started working with a knife?
Well, I started in a Filipino style called Kung Tao. Kung Tao is a blade-oriented style, of course. All ancient martial arts are blade-oriented styles. And a sport that's different, but all martial arts came from the blade. But this is, this particular style comes from the blade culture. Kung Tao is probably one of the first martial arts, I would say, if not the first, to be into the Philippines, going almost 1,000 years ago, going back.
Could you mind to share with us which kind of system do you practice and do you teach now?
I teach Kung Tao in its pure form. I've actually learned from a few different people within a few different styles, so I've got my influence changed the original system a little bit from other styles, but I teach that pretty much in its pure form. And I've done a lot of different blade-oriented styles over the years. I started off with modern arnis when it comes to Kali arnis Escrima anyway. I've done modern arnis, and then I went into the Anasanto system. The Anasanto system, I started off with, of course, Guru Dan Anasanto, Larry Hartzell, and Paul Vunak back in the day. And then I went off to train with a lot of other people. I met Edgar Stilete. Actually, I met him through Larry Hartzell. And I've studied with various different people in the Philippines. My latest one was Yuli Ramo in the Bahad Zubu system. I've only done about 25 hours with him so far, but I've picked up a lot from training with him. They're all different, I noticed. I mean, I've seen even what they call a crab style in Mindoro one time, and I found it quite fascinating. Different, but fascinating. So really what I teach is kind of my own expression of what I see in Filipino martial arts. For the most part, I leave out all the stuff that I feel doesn't work right away. And, the way I teach in a progression. So the student learns how to fight rather quickly. And the progression is pretty nice because my students do learn pretty fast. And basically that's it. I've been doing it for a long time, and I just keep studying. I'm still studying. I'm 58 years old now, and I'm still looking to learn more of these types of systems. I'm only one person, so it's hard to get up and just go and learn all this all the time, but I do the best I can.
Mr. Kosakowski, could you mind to share with us, can you tell 5 main principles of your system?
The whole thing boils down to one principle, and that's self-defense, taking to any necessary whatever is needed to protect yourself, actually, to any necessary extreme. So I mean, 5 principles, basically that's one principle, but that's the principle that we use is it's for self-defense. If you're meaning the ranges, I mean, we have all the ranges that everybody else has. It's the close range, the medium range, and the long range. Multi-man attack oriented, very weapon oriented. We use a long spear, staff, sticks, which would be the category of impact weapons, or the bladed weapons, and a combination of bladed weapons, like the sword and knife, which they call espada y daga. Flexible weapons could be anything, could be a shirt, could be a belt, a rope, even nunchaku, which is commonly known. And anything, environmental weapons would be the other area. We use anything. It could be dirt. It could be something found on the side of the road. Just throw it and while you're attacking to distract them, or throw it to be able to get to your weapon. Basically, that's it. I don't know if that's 5 principles, but that's a big explanation. I hope that explains it.
Mr. Kosakowski, do you have any certain logical model in your system, and how does it look?
I have, for my Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, and integrated grappling systems area I teach, which is my blend of MMA. I use a boa and a cobra, king cobra symbol, because it's striking and grappling. That's why I use that for that particular style. For my Kali, I basically have been using the symbol of Pakiti Terja Kali and Inasanto Kali. I spent a lot of years also with Leo Gahe. I know I didn't mention that before. I'm sorry, but I spent a lot of years with him. So I just basically use those two for that. But I probably go a little bit beyond, just those particular styles, because I've learned from a lot of people. But those are the symbols I basically use for that. His symbol represents training in the moonlight. Supposedly that was to hide what they were doing from the Spanish, and also hiding from other people watching, so they used to do it, in other words, at nighttime. They didn't want their neighbors watching what they were doing and pick up on the movements. I think the Spanish is more myth about that, so the Spanish doesn't see them, but I think it was more to hide it from either neighboring tribes or somebody else that has a different system and not stealing any of their techniques. That's probably what the Inasanto system represents more. He has 2 different swords. I'm not really sure what swords they are. Look like pinute on one of them and a stick. And he has the vertical fist also underneath, which in ancient times, all punching was done with vertical fist. It was never done with the classical 2-knuckle punch like that. It was always done with a vertical fist, because that's where you get your leverage advantage for your punch without breaking your hand. As you can see, the bones, you hit with the last 3 knuckles, the bones are all in line right here. Where here, if you hit with just these 2 knuckles, if you end up punching this way, you'd end up breaking your hand. So that wasn't done too much in ancient times, maybe to particular targets, that's all. So I think that's what his represents. That's what I get out of it. The Kiti Terja symbol is, it has representations of the flag and the 7 stars, and which represents the main islands, and continuous flow, more or less. That's what that one represents more.
Is it important for the person to have some psychological preparation before he started working with a knife?
Oh, yes, definitely. If you notice, when you bring a knife somewhere, people are either very fascinated by it or they're scared of it. That goes for everybody, female and male. So it's one thing that people do in most systems is they practice with a wooden knife or a plastic knife, so they're not scared of it. Then all of a sudden, if somebody comes at you and they have this shiny looking sharp, razor sharp object coming at them, they freeze up because they're so used to training with just a plastic or wooden knife. And, that's kind of a shock. So we do a lot of training with the real knife to get people used to it. Of course, we go slow for people that are, start getting used to the knife, beginning students to intermediate level. We start working them with the real knife. In Kung Tao, right away we start working with the real knife because we have a lot of stuff that we do that consists of, stationary knife tactics when somebody holds a knife to you or holds you behind the throat or whatever. So we practice those tactics with a real knife because that's what you're going to be attacked with. So, but they start off with the plastic knife. That's basically the mental preparation, is to get people so they're not scared of a knife. I think that would go for any weapon, even a gun. I'm bringing out my whole Quintal class next Saturday, actually, to show them how to fire different guns. I'm bringing all my guns. I got friends who are bringing all their guns. I'm going to show them my side of it, and I have a guy who's been in the military who has killed a lot of people, actually, and he's going to be showing a lot of safety stuff. He's going to show a lot of tactical stuff with the gun, and that's going to prepare everybody so they're not scared of the gun. So mental preparation for any weapon is very important.
Could you mind to share with us how do you start teaching working with a knife? Can you tell us some 5 first steps?
Okay, well, number one, I teach people accuracy of swinging. Usually start off with a stick, of course, but it's the same principle, whether it's a sword, stick, or a knife. I show them the counteroffensive ways to hit. And a lot of people, when they do swing a blade, I notice just, let's say, a number 1 and number 2 angle, we'll call it that, okay? A lot of people don't do it correctly, I notice, because Filipino martial arts are getting watered down because of the area that they do swing. They might swing lower, leaving their head wide open, or leaving the bottom half wide open, whatever. So I start by that, and I make them look in the mirror and learn how to swing, and I have them work that for a long time. Sometimes up to 3 days, they might just work that alone. Patient people will go with that. Then I show them the footwork, because the idea of maybe if you're kickboxing, you get hit, you could give 3 back. Well, you can't do that with a knife so much. So it's you have to try to hit without getting hit, or get less stitches than the other person. So that's another thing. So I teach the footwork to go with the striking. Body positioning is another thing that goes with the footwork and the striking. So that's very important, because sometimes you have to turn your body a certain way to evade a strike while you're striking back, especially when you're intercepting an incoming strike, or you want to cut the hand. So you have to evade. You have to sometimes put your body in when you step 45-degree angle, you put your body into a 45-degree angle at the same time to evade. So it's basically that's the steps I start off with, and then we go into various drilling. I'm not one to spend a lot of time on empty drills. What I do is I teach blends of drills. We do a drill, they learn it, and then they blend it, and then they go live with it. So I teach them how to go live pretty much right away. So I break pattern to throw the person off, because that's the way life is in anything. So basically, that's how I teach.
Mr. Kosakowski, how do you think why we have a lot of teachers today that are really wanted to teach knife fighting?
I remember when I first started, of course, nobody did Filipino martial arts. As a matter of fact, people used to say, Philippines, there's martial arts in the Philippines? They didn't even know that. Nobody's ever heard of Quintal. Nobody heard of Kali, Arnis, Escrima. In fact, in the Philippines today, it depends on where you go. A lot of them don't even know what it is. They might have heard of Arnis. They don't know what it is, but all they think of is maybe Sinawali, because that's what they learned in school. But what's going on is, as you can see what the world is today, Russia and the United States right now, look what they're doing to the terrorists. Trying to, terrorism is big. People are stabbing, people are shooting, people want self-defense. And karate style right now does not offer that kind of self-defense. It works well for a big man, but it's not going to work well for somebody who's small or a smaller woman and that's got to defend themselves against a knife. So people want an equalizer to be able to fight back, but you have to learn how to do it. You can't just give somebody a knife or a gun or any weapon and say, here you go, now you're safe. No, you have to be able to understand how to use it and properly and the scientific way of doing it. And this way, you got a good chance of survival. And I think everybody sees that now. Unfortunately, Filipino martial arts are getting watered down. I watch a lot of videos, and I want to put my hand on my head going, oh, my God, I can't believe what they're teaching. And even people will give me a video, and they'll send it to me. They'll say, hey, Ron, what do you think of my style? I'll click like, but I can't say much. I have to be nice, but a lot of people are losing the true essence of it because it's getting more popular, and that's most unfortunate. But I keep it alive here. I'm trying to keep it alive through my you know, I sell the weapons too, so I try to keep it alive through the traditional FilipinoWeapons.com and through the martial arts I teach. And I'm trying to keep the true historical aspects of it alive.
Could you mind to share with us about the history of your system?
The history of Kung Tao, you mean? Okay, of Kung Tao. Well, it started in China approximately 3,500 years ago. There was a dynasty where the emperor thought the Shaolin temples were too powerful, and a lot of these monks were too powerful and too big of an influence on people, so they sent in their armies to break these temples up. And a lot of these monks had to make a living, so they ended up going all over the place to seek out jobs, and a lot of them became sailors, actually. And then they moved to, you know, they would do a lot of trade and even move to the different parts of Southeast Asia. That's why you see Kung Tao in, it may be called something else, like Bersalat or something like that in Malaysia. Indonesia, you'll hear it called Kung Tao Silat, and in the Philippines, you'll hear it called Kung Tao. You see it through various parts of Southeast Asia, actually. So what had happened is a lot of these people that traded, they would live both in China and they would live in say the Philippines for my style. Some of them would even have a wife in the Philippines and a wife in China, and you know, but they would be going back and forth and live in one area for so many months, and then they go away and then live in the other area for so many months. And basically, through trade, they traded Kung Tao. You know, was one of the things, and they brought it there, and it adapted to the existing weapons, the existing fighting systems, you know, whether it was based on bravery or not, they you know, it had to adapt to the environment also. And that's what formed the Filipino Kung Tao system. You'll see it, all different Kung Tao systems, which do come from various different systems, because in China it's a generic term. But in Kung Tao, they basically just call it that. But you'll have Tosog Kung Tao, you'll have Maguindanao Kung Tao, you'll have Maranao Kung Tao. So and they're, I always say they're the same but different, if that makes sense. But you'll see that, you know, their style usually adapts to the weapon that they use at the time. My style has originally had the Kris and the Barong, so you'll see that type of movement within the system. But so does Tosog Kung Tao also. You know, you know, and I don't know much about the Tosog Kung Tao. I've seen very little, but it's very interesting also. Ours takes a very low position in a lot of instances because of the weapon and because it's in fighting oriented. I was told by my teacher that it comes from the drunken monkey style originally, which you could see some of that within the system. And I guess basically what had happened is my teacher, who during World War II had learned Kung Tao with 200 people. They had this thing that they wanted to do. They wanted them to fight without guns, not to make noise. So they had to learn jungle survival, and they had to learn Kuntao quick killing tactics. And they hired somebody from the Philippines to teach them this. I think it was a failed program because only 6 came back alive after World War II. 3 of them, including my teacher, Joe Rossi, went back to the Philippines and learned, stayed with the master that was teaching them before the war. Well, not before the war, but when they prepared them for the war. And he stayed with them for like just about 10 years. And when he came back, he had come back with the whole system, which is quite interesting. And that's how it arrived here in the United States. I feel very lucky that I was trusted by him to get all the stuff, the information. I think it's one of the things. I was very devoted. I was with him 5 to 7 days a week. I was the only one that would show up, especially if it was a hot day or something. Some people just wouldn't show up, and it was many days like that. I stayed. When the class was 20 people, it would dwindle down to maybe only 3 or 4 people, sometimes just 2 people showing up, and I was always there. And I would show up by myself, and he would take the time to show me. And I feel very lucky to get the system from him.
Mr. Kosakowski, do you have some certain tactics and strategy in this system?
In Kuntao, the strategy is hand monitoring, basically. It's hard to explain on video, but there's certain movements you do with your hands and the weapons, which kind of monitor against to hit the logical angle that a person might attack you ahead of time. Basically, I would say that would be the strategy, is being there before the other person is, but that goes through the footwork, which you're monitoring. If a person steps a certain way, you step kind of the counter-offensive way, you might say, to be able to defend what attack that he could potentially do at that angle. Basically, that's it. That goes for multi-man attack also. It's like a geometrical science kind of, especially when there's multi-man attack and they have weapons, of course. So it's there's a lot of different footwork that's used to be able to avoid and evade any incoming attacks, or at least take as little of it as possible. It's not easy, but it can be done.
There are a lot of situations today that we see on the street. For example, one person, he is studying the martial arts, knife fighting in the gym for 3-5 years, and after he is going on the street and he sees some person with a knife and he doesn't know what to do and just run away. Why does it happen?
I would say because they're used to working with a plastic or a wooden knife. That could be one thing. Another thing is he's probably smart. You really want to confront somebody with a knife, it's probably not a good thing to do. I've been stabbed in the back myself, and I was down that night. I kept on fighting, but the next day, for another 5 days, I was laying down for 5 days watching TV because I couldn't get up. It hurt. I didn't go to the doctor. I was younger then, but I mean, it's not good to get cut. You ruin parts of the body, and it could be forever in some instances.
How do you think? What actually pushed people that they started working with a knife?
I think we answered that before. I mean, right now, especially, there's a lot of terrorism going on, and that's all over the world. People are afraid right now, so they want real martial arts. They don't want something that's, they're going to sit and do forms and kick and punch in the air and go hi-ya. That's not going to help them in terrorist situations at this point. People are leaning towards more realistic martial arts right now, those who are thinking about it. I know here in the United States, gun sales are way up, and knife sales are up. It's because people don't want these attacks happening to them. And basically, that's what it is. there's nothing else you could do but try to defend yourself and do the best you could. Probably most of those people will never even need to use it, and they're spending all this money, but it's better to have and not need than to need and not have.
Mr. Kosakowski, how do you think? Does knife has future in the 21st century?
Yes, I would say, because fights still become up close and personal. If somebody's going to shoot you from a rooftop, a knife's not going to do you any good. But up close and personal, the knife has great potential to save your life. If a man and a woman are walking somewhere and a gang of thugs wants to take them out and take the woman away from him, or whatever the situation, or just rob them, it's nice to have an equalizer to take care of the situation and make sure that they don't do that. I think that's going to be forever, unless they come up with laser knives in the future. I don't know.
Mr. Kosakowski, could you recommend something to the people that just decided to start working with a knife?
It's hard because, like I said, there are a lot of people that teach the knife, and I don't see that it's logical, but there's a lot of good ones out there. So you have to look for a good system, and you kind of have to maybe look around if there's more than one in your area. Hitting up people that know what they're doing, maybe through seminars, training camps, things like that, learning how to use it properly. Training, that's the thing. I mean, it is fun. It's not just something for destruction. It's an exercise, so it's also very good to train with it and get the reflexes and develop the various different drills that do give you those reflexes to respond spontaneously. Other than that, I mean, really, that's what I recommend. It's hard to tell, because when you don't know anything and you walk into the school and the teacher says, "I'm the greatest, here it is, this is the system that's better than any other system, you want to learn how to defend yourself, here you go." And you might be learning something false, and it's hard to determine, if you don't know anything, which is good, which is bad, until you see something else. But so I recommend just comparing different schools before you join up with one.